Ricky's tummy grumbled. He was almost out of meals. Everything in the vehicles had been trashed. He hadn't found any food to scavenge yet. It was pretty warm out. Ricky hoped that maybe some potatoes or something was growing somewhere. He couldn't think of what else was in season. He wasn't very good at this. If he could find a field or a park, maybe he could find a new growth of ferns or mushrooms or something. Ricky got lost in thought again, trying to figure out what kind of food he could try to find, like maybe strawberries or rhubarb or something. He wasn't sure. Then, out of nowhere, the girl popped back up. She had a basket. "Hey, how are you, little one?" "Martina," the little girl said curtly. "Okay, names then, that's fine. I'm Ricky. How are you?" "Martina." Ricky tried to say her name as sweet as possible, and it made her smile. "I'm fine, Ricky. I brought you lunch." Ricky couldn't believe it and wanted to tear up at the unexpected kindness. "Thank you, Martina. I don't know what to say." "Well, you could say thank you, then try to trade me something. We're big into trading." "I only have some tools right now. Do you want a tool, like a hammer or something?" She made a noise like blah and said she doesn't need tools. "Well, how bad would your parents freak out if you had a gun?" Her eyes got wide. Ricky grabbed the reliable pocket pistol and showed it to her in a safe manner. Had the slide open and she showed her it was empty. "You're what, 10, yeah? 10.5. Oh my goodness, 10.5, okay. Well, that's plenty fine then. How about I trade you this pistol and some ammo and mags for that food? We have a deal?" So, she obviously couldn't believe it. She had no idea how she was ever gonna get a gun of her own. And now here it was. She couldn't contain herself, and what started off as a semi-cordial formality had netted her something amazing. But was it too good to be true? "Well, don't you want it, Mr. Ricky?" "I don't need it, but someone like you who might run into bad guys, this could come in really handy. Here, we'll keep it unloaded." He showed it to her again. "See, no rounds in the chamber and no mag." He slid it across the table to where she was standing. "Pick it up, but keep it pointed in a safe direction, obviously." She thought about it for a second. She knew from the adults at camp that guns were not dangerous if they were unloaded, but to treat them like they were loaded anyway. She picked it up and it fit in her little hands perfectly. Within moments, little Martina was mimicking some training she'd obviously seen, and was looking for a place to stuff it in her clothes. Ricky looked and her finger was indexed and everything. No finger on the trigger. So she'd definitely been watching people in her town shoot and train already. Ricky took the food out of the basket and set it on the table and set all the mags and bullets in her basket. "I bet you if you ask the guys at camp, they'll teach you how to shoot properly." She seemed too startled for a second at him beginning to talk, and then remembered what was going on. She'd already stuffed it somewhere, so it seemed like the deal was complete. The gun. The pistol. She looked in her bag and saw several mags and ammo, which made her happy. Martina looked around and found something to put over the mags and ammo so they wouldn't gather unwanted attention. Martina did a little curtsy, and Ricky nodded slowly, and off she went. The food was wrapped in a paper bag of sorts. Ricky unwrapped it, and it had a medley of vegetables and fruit and an egg. Holy moly, an egg. I haven't had a fresh egg in forever. Ricky thought about it, and while he got more nutrients if he ate the egg raw, he really needed the protein, which was absorbed almost twice as much as if he could cook the egg somehow. He grabbed his bolt cutters and went through a few sheds until he found some propane in a stove. From the house, he got a pot and a match and went out and lit the stove and threw everything in the pot and had a nice, fresh spring meal. Afterwards, Ricky felt a million times better and could actually think clearly. He instantly regretted not offering to share his meal with Beninka. He checked his phone when he was done eating and no messages yet this morning. Hopefully she was okay. What was he thinking? She was fine. She'd been out this long alone anyway because Ricky wouldn't share the sewer. He had his critters to think about, though, and he knew that, historically, they could never coexist for long without such fierce competition and next to no resources. Still, it was dangerous to be alone, even he felt it. It was impossible to look everywhere at once and be prepared for everything. If there were enough resources out there, they could coexist fine, couldn't they? He wasn't sure. Then he finally got a message from her as the phone began buzzing around the table, trying to throw itself off the edge onto the concrete. Ricky put his hand down to catch the phone in time, only for it to change its mind and rumble in the other direction. With his other hand, he grabbed it and stopped it in place. Ricky glanced down at the chat log with phone in place. Found a man. He's hurt. Don't think he's going to last much longer. I don't like it. Phone will guide you to me. Ricky looked around and he was all finished with everything, so he wrote in a little note to Martina to please take care of his plants and that he'd be back as soon as he could. Ricky then headed off to where the phone said to go. Chapter 12. Unsettling discovery. Afternoon. Ricky shuffled along the way. He told the rats to go ahead and keep on what they were doing, which they were okay with. There was still a lot of things to do, like look for potatoes and onions. They probably needed a break anyway. As Ricky passed random water containers, he would tip them all over. No use giving the mosquitoes an extra breeding ground, he figured. He tried to remember where they all were so he could pick up some of them on his return. They were mostly 5-gallon buckets and in fairly good shape. Ricky walked for an hour or so to the north, and Mortimer notified him that they were quite clearly in black rat territory. Ricky could feel it. The aura was different. It wasn't bad necessarily, but definitely a different attitude. Everything was a lot more serious. As he got closer to the phone coordinates, he realized that there was nobody located where the phone was telling him to be. It wasn't bad necessarily, but definitely a different attitude. Everything was a lot more serious. As he got closer to the phone coordinates, he realized that there was nobody located where the phone was telling him to be. He felt a rifle being pointed at him from somewhere. He slowly put his stumpy arms to each side and made sure his hands were showing from his coat. He twirled around a few times, kicking at the ground to make sure there was nothing going to poke his rear, then sat down. He closed his eyes and sat peacefully until he sensed a strict and absolute presence behind him. Without opening his eyes, Ricky said all he could think of. Hi. There was silence. The scent of licorice caught Ricky's nose. He felt a poke in his back of an aggressive flash suppressor of a rifle. Ow! He got poked again. Ow! Then a sort of high-pitched but still pleasant enough voice finally spoke. It had a hint of flirtiness and coyness to it. You're weird. Ricky turned around and shuffling. And a rifle looked exactly like it did in his head, although the moderately aggressive flash suppressor he hadn't noticed before. A minor detail, but it was pointed right in his face now. The carbon fiber mesh around the cold hammer-forged barrel looked like a hollow baseball bat and was as strong as any steel. Milled receiver, not stamped. Looked like an AK, but had a giant box mag. Nice Galil, she humphed indifferently, then kicked him over. Ricky rolled onto his back and stared up at her, grinning like an idiot. Rifle pointed down at him, but he didn't see it anymore. Hi, I hope we can be friends. She humphed again and let her rifle hang down and offered him a black-gloved hand. He took it, and she yanked him up to a standing position effortlessly. Ricky noted to himself that she was very nearly as strong as he was, despite her relatively petite frame in contrast to his stocky one. He continued grinning at her, and she smacked him open-handed with her gloved hand. He expected it, though it was faster than he anticipated. He let his head roll, with it a little extra than it needed to for added effect, but he ended up not needing to exaggerate it that much. She was indeed as strong as he guessed. Then suddenly there was a black rat on her shoulder, reminding her to stop messing around. She nodded and pointed away. Mortimer snickered at the situation, and Beninka smirked while Esmeralda looked away defiantly. They walked to get Beninka's phone, then walked a ways to the body of a researcher on the ground. He appeared to have passed an hour or so prior and was riddled with syringes.